Mixing vocals could be a frustrating and tedious process, especially if you just started making music. With countless tutorials, plugins, and presets available online, it may be difficult to know where to start to get the vocal sound that you're looking for. And in today's episode of the Audio Alchemy Podcast, we're going to break down all the different ways that you could get professional sounding vocals, whether you should use vocal presets or not, and some additional tips as to how you could use your gear better to get specific results tailored to your music. So make sure you sit back, relax, grab some snacks, and enjoy the video. So I want to kick off this podcast starting off by talking about vocal presets and how I feel they became so popular. So when I first found out about a vocal preset was probably long after I already even started engineering, maybe like a year or two after, but I think they came to me personally. The first time I found out about a vocal preset was probably like around like 2018 or 2019. And I think they became so popular because of the specific way that they were marketed towards the beginners. So one thing that I've learned about a lot of these digital assets, because that's what they're technically considered, they're digital assets within the e-commerce or whatever the fuck marketing world or whatever. They're marketed to be quick and easy solutions for beginners. So
right.
That's just the name of the game, and I feel like a lot of people saw that there was like a growing market in that, so then they just started to capitalize on people's
lack of knowledge almost.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah, they're capitalizing on people's lack of knowledge, but then at the same time too, the reason why a lot of people feed into it is because if you really aren't a professional and you just want something quick and fast, which a lot of people nowadays within the home studio and home recording setups and all that stuff.
Right, exactly.
You don't really want to learn how to use this shit. You just you're so excited to record songs and record and make music that you don't even really care to understand, okay, these are the tools and how do I use them? So I feel
people just try to cut corners a lot of the times. They want to figure out the fastest and easiest solution, even if it doesn't mean that they're doing it correctly, you know?
Exactly. And I feel like, so that's how they became so popular. So when you're looking online and you say, oh, okay, this is the Chris Brown preset, the Drake preset, the Travis Scott preset, the Yeet preset, all that kind of shit. You know what I'm saying? At least for the ones that you purchase online, or like the Chris rap vocal preset or all that kind of shit, it's all marketing tactics that these people are selling to you, because realistically speaking, when it comes to these presets,
you know, what are you gonna know better? You know what I mean?
When it comes to these presets, they all have the same plugins, if you really think about it, because it goes down strictly to the basics. They have EQ, compression, and that's pretty much it. And then whatever additional effects they have. Exactly. But it's just, you really just got to know how to EQ and compress. You don't even really need a vocal preset, because you could buy, again, I was speaking to a few of you guys on my Instagram. There's a lot of people that reached out. So shout out to you guys. Yeah, because you guys helped me achieve this perspective on it, because I was just trying to figure it out. But I spoke to one dude and he said that he bought a preset pack that came with like 65 fucking presets on it, which
65.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But he was telling me that out of the 65, he would cycle through them and he only was able to find 5. So even if they're marketed to get a quick and easy result, a lot of the times, if you don't really spend the time to learn your gear, you're going to spend even more time just cycling through the presets to even find one that you like and that you want to use for your music.
Exactly. Everybody has different vocals. Everybody needs different treatment for it.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I want to talk about too, because there was a lot of people in my DMs that they kind of already knew that as well. And I feel like a lot of people, I feel like more people are kind of coming around to the fact that they're understanding, okay, yeah, presets aren't really the end all be all and that kind of thing. And a lot of people also just struggle with just figuring out how to make their vocals sound good, which is something that we're going to get into a little bit later in the podcast, because I still want you guys to think about that and be able to learn your tools quicker, so that way you can get the confidence when you're mixing your vocals, because that's what it all boils down to. It's like, if you don't have the confidence within your skills, then you're going to turn towards a preset. And even if you don't turn towards a preset, you still may be lacking that confidence, because you're like, okay, I feel like my knowledge is limited as to what I can get, which is one of the reasons why it's important if you really want like high quality vocals for your song, to hire an engineer. But again, the downside to that, I guess, is not everybody can afford a mixing and mastering engineer, and that's another reason why I feel that these presets became so popular too, because they're cheap, easy solutions. And again, that's how they were marketed, which
Yep.
if it makes sense, because now that I started getting into the video space, as in like creating these podcasts and creating content and all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of people online who sell presets for video shit. So they're like video digital assets, and to me those are helpful. So that's a completely different, like I guess, business or whatever, or market or skill. But for me, not being a professional, as in like a video professional, understanding that, like, to be honest, yeah, like I would use a fucking video preset, because
Yeah.
like a lot of people, like, you got to look at it from that perspective, and it's like I don't have time to fucking learn how to manually dial in or create my own like moving graphics or shit like that. It's like I'd rather just get a preset. But it's all an interesting topic. It's all an
Yeah, and it's
interesting
also a
topic.
different craft at the end of the day. You know, video production and music is also two different things.
Yeah, because video production, it's like you can really, I think, apply the certain effects to the video, and it'll get the same thing. Like you'll still get the
Yeah.
same motion. It'll still be like the same movement or whatever the fuck. But
Right, exactly. I feel like with a video preset, it's probably like more universal than something that's more of like a vocal preset, because you know a video doesn't come in different keys. You're not in different tones. A video is a video, and how you use that to edit a video is such. When it's like a vocal is different every single time that you are delivering it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different variations and factors in it. So I don't think that using a video preset or template is like
it's
a
like the
bad
same
thing, you know?
Yeah,
That's
but
not a sin.
yeah, and then the other thing too is like, so another thing that I was getting is there's a lot of people who have their own user made presets, and I think that is valid as well. If you
Yup.
intention, like there was a few people that I was speaking to, it's like, okay, they were like, I'm just running slight EQ and then this slight compression, and that's it. And then
Yeah.
they have the sense, bro. That's literally what we all fucking do.
That's literally what we all do, you know? And that's a whole other thing, is like tracking with plugins and without, you know? And I personally, my opinion, you know, I think like, let's just say you do make a preset for yourself, like a personal template, you know?
Yeah.
Where it just has slight EQ compression, where you know, like, oh, normally like my voice is boxy around here, or it's a little bit like, you know what I mean, boomy around this area. I'm gonna cut here. I'm gonna give myself just a little compression, so that way when I'm delivering, like, you know, I can deliver with more confidence without feeling like I'm going too loud, this, that. You know, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
That's perfectly fine at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's when it's like, oh, I want that Gunna preset, that little baby template. This. It's like,
Yeah.
that's a whole different situation, because those specific presets and effects are dialed in a completely different way than what your vocal specifically needs.
Exactly. Yeah, and everybody's different. And yeah, so if you're going that user made preset route, it realistically it does make sense, because
Yeah.
I was speaking to certain people who they didn't have an analog chain. So for the people who, if you
Right.
don't have an analog chain, again, it goes back to the headphone monitoring kind of thing. Obviously, I asked too, I was like, why do you use presets? And a lot of people say it's because they want to hear their voice in a specific way. And I get that there's again a lot of beginners within this space that may not have the luxury to have analog gear.
Right.
You probably only 9 times out of 10 you probably only have an interface. I mean,
Just an interface
a
and a
microphone
mic.
and it plugged directly into an interface. So I could see why certain people, either they go for like the full on preset route, or they just do the, you know, like slight little EQ and compression. So that makes sense too. But if you ever have the chance, and okay, look, you guys are concerned about your vocals, right? So
Yeah.
one thing that I'll say right now is, like, if you guys really want killer vocals, invest into specific gear into your vocal chain that you can run your shit analog. You get what I'm saying? And the whole analog domain is crazy. You don't even have to mix an analog. You could just buy recording gear
and analog,
to
exactly.
record into analog, because that's the quickest way to hear your voice sound a specific way. Because
Exactly.
what a lot of people don't know is that all these presets and all like EQ compression, it all started off analog. That's where it first came and started off. And it's
That's where music started off in general. We started off with analog gear. There was no digital plugins at one point. Everything was on gear on tape.
yeah, so if you think about music in that tense, then it's like people weren't using presets back then, so why would you so does it raises the question, do we really need to use presets now? I mean, that's up to debate. That's up to
Exactly.
debate, but
And also presets versus templates.
yeah, okay, there you go. Yeah, so that's another one too. So
That's a whole other topic. Presets versus templates.
so I want to define it like this. So to me, a vocal preset is a set of plugins that are dialed in a specific way to give you a specific sound within your tracks. Whether you keep it on a vocal bus or on the direct track, that's what a preset is. It's where it's already set plugins and all the plugins are dialed in, and that's the vocal preset. That's what presets are, because it's plugin
It's like
processing.
a set and forget thing.
Yeah, but templates are like the structure of your session. So
exactly.
that's the difference, because I use a template all the fucking time. I don't want to create a recording template from scratch each time. There's certain things that I want routed to specific things. So it's like, if I want my lead vocals, so for those who don't know, yeah, like if you guys are beginner engineers or just getting into it, a template is very valuable to have if you have a specific workflow. So
Exactly.
the way that my template is structured is I have a recording track, and then I have 2 lead tracks, and then I have an ad-lib track, I have a dub track, and then all of my vocal tracks go into my vocal bus, and then from my vocal bus it goes to my all vocals bus, and then from my all vocals bus it goes to my mix bus. And if you guys get that, you get that. If you don't, rewind it and listen to it or look into it. But I have my template set up in that way, so that way every time I record, I'm not manually creating all those tracks, manually routing everything out, manually doing all that. So templates are perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But again, too, there's a lot of people who are marketing, oh, this Future uses this template, or fucking Chris Brown uses this template. Dude, with these templates, so now aside from presets, with templates, you have to find your own specific workflow that works for you. And if you see yourself doing specific moves, like let's say you're recording on Pro Tools, let's just keep it super simple, recording on Pro Tools, and you have like 2 tracks, but you're always recording a bunch of layers or ad-libs or whatever, and you have to keep creating tracks to drag those vocal tracks onto. Logic could be like a similar way too. If you're doing it like that, then, and you're always creating those tracks, then might as well save your template with those tracks already in mind. So that way you could, it's not like, because presets say, oh, just drag and drop and you get a sound. No, it's for the template, it's you drag and drop and everything's set in a nice structured way, so that way you could do your processing exactly how you need to do. So that's the difference between a vocal preset and a vocal template. They're kind of parallel, but they're not exactly the same. And templates, again, it's all about workflow, and they speed up your workflow. So I'm not against templates, but when they market templates as you're getting a sound from this template, that's not accurately correct, because again, bringing back the definition of a preset is a set list of plugins that are already dialed in to give you a sound. But
look, y'all, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. When I first started engineering, I was using a preset on FL.
oh,
I didn't buy it. It wasn't a bot preset or anything, right? It was just a preset that one of the homies had made. You know, it was just a bunch of like, just normal EQ processing. But it was one of those things where, we just kind of sat it, and it was just a set and forget,
Yep.
But my boy over here had to tell me what's up.
Yeah.
Had to get me on Pro Tools for one. Shout out to Pro Tools. Shout out to Avid.
Yeah.
But as soon as I switched over, and then he honestly gave me his recording template, and he showed me like the actual proper way on how to record and dial in my plugins, that's when I actually started developing as an engineer.
Your own sound.
Exactly. And just figuring out what works with the tools that I have, rather than just like leaving them and expecting them to work for everybody and everyone on it,
Yeah, and that's just fucking hilarious.
It's
too.
the truth. I ain't gonna lie. It's the truth. I can't lie to y'all.
It's funny because when you first started fucking engineering too, you were like, oh, we were recording those fools. And then you were like, oh, bro, like, you should put this. Like, I like putting this on my vocals, this on my vocals, this on my... And I looked at him and I was like, who is this guy, bro?
Hey, bro.
Who
Gotta
is
start.
who
Gotta
is
start
this
somewhere.
guy?
Gotta start somewhere.
Who
Gotta
is this
start
guy trying
somewhere.
to tell me? Trying to tell me how to do my job. I was like, bro, chill.
Hey, gotta start somewhere. Gotta start somewhere.
That shit was fucking hilarious. Like, and I remember the chain too. It was like decapitator with fucking FL fruity
No.
parametric
It was like what Pro Q into like fruity compressor into Pro Q into like ozone compressor into like another Pro Q into SSL bus comp. Hey, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't make the chain. Just used it. But hey, we live and we learn.
And it's funny because 9 times out of 10, to make your vocals sound good, one thing that I want to so this is kind of tying into like tips for you guys as the beginners.
Yeah.
A lot of times less is way more.
Oh
So
yeah, for sure.
you would be
For sure.
surprised because what a lot of professional engineers do is like I mean, it obviously varies from source to source. So if you're recording in a fucked up room with a fucked up sound, you're obviously going to have to do a lot more heavy-handed
Heavy-handed, yup.
processing. But if you're in a semi-controlled environment at least, and you know really what you're doing and your vocalist is good, you really do not even need to do too much. And the issue with these presets is they over-process the fuck out of your vocals where it just sounds fucking dead and unnatural and
Right.
and it sounds too flat. And a lot of people, though, when they start, they overcompensate with certain shit. Like a lot of beginners, you'll know there's a lot of beginners if you're first starting to get into understanding these tools, what they usually do is they'll fucking EQ out way too much low end, so there's no body in their vocal, or
Boost
they're
the fuck out of the high end.
highs. Yeah, and then it's like too bright, and that's how you know that that's like a super rookie fucking person behind the faders or whatever
Yeah.
the fuck, because those little things. But once you start developing your ear, you just leave the vocal natural as it is. And if you're recording and you feel like, oh, this sounds too dry, because that's a big common one too. A lot of people say this sounds too dry. Well, then if you want to
Compensate with something. You
yeah,
know?
if you want it to sound a little bit more quote unquote not dry, well, the opposite of dry is wet, right? And how do we get a wet sound? Using reverb, so basically
Compensation.
yeah, so throw a send and run your vocals through a send, and then
Yeah.
make sure you know how to properly set your reverb times. And if you want, do a delay, because then
It
that's
gives
how
it that spacey, vibey feel.
yeah.
Yeah, because personally, for both of us, even, all we do is we both record with just autotune, reverb, delay. We don't and we have, of course, our analog chain.
Exactly.
But we don't record with any other processing but that. All of the extra processing is done after the fact. And that's just how we work specifically, but that's just how we get to our end destination the fastest,
Yeah, and then
And one thing is also, I feel like, say you are recording with a preset, right?
yeah.
A lot of the times with a preset, like, you're going to have issues with gain staging if you don't really know what the fuck you're doing, because your preset could be pumping up so much gain internally in the volume, or it could be compressing the fuck out of shit where you don't even know how hot shit is actually coming in. Let's just say you take off all of those plugins. Now, how does it actually sound? You could hear it and it could be like, oh shit, what the fuck? This does not sound right at all. You gotta think like your preset could be masking certain
What
things.
you're doing,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And it all starts with the initial source at the end of the day. So you want to make sure that initial source and that audio is coming out properly.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I wanted to talk about too, is if you're using presets so heavily to get your sound, like you said, because that's what I wrote down too, you're masking your voice. So I've seen
Yeah.
it countless amounts of times where we'll be in recording sessions and the artist is like, hey, nah, bro, my voice don't sound right, bro. And it's like,
Oh,
and it's
the
like,
amounts of times if
Yeah.
I had the dollars for them.
and to me, that is an excuse. And that's something that you want to avoid, because you want to be able to record in whatever situation you're in.
Yeah.
You don't want to use that as an excuse for you not making music just because your vocals don't sound right. Well, the harsh truth is, if you're using a bunch of presets and effects to record your vocals, and once you remove that and you're like, bro, what the fuck, that sounds off, then you're literally hiding what your voice actually sounds like. And there's no way to really get around that but to work on your delivery and work on your style to fucking get a good sound. You have to put good in to get good out. You can't
100%.
fucking go in and
You can't polish a turd. That's the thing. Like, that's just one of the things that I've had to learn in this music business. Is not everything is going to be good that's put in. And if it's not necessarily always good work getting put in, it's hard to like actually give a good result out.
Yeah,
You know,
and
it's
exactly.
equal effort at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's for vocal presets, but I kind of want to go into this little subcategory of like plugin presets because plugins have presets.
Ooh,
And
plug-in presets. That's a
and
good one. I like those.
and yeah, you see,
I like those.
and that's completely different. You
But it
get what I'm
just yeah,
saying?
it just depends. So yeah, plugin presets. So like it obviously depends on the plugins, right? But a lot of plugins that you purchase, they have selected folders with already like specific
Presets.
internal effects and presets,
Yeah.
that are given. And I think a lot of those are cool. I wouldn't necessarily. I mean, like let's just say, for example, right? For example, if you have a vocal, right, and obviously I'm not going to use a plugin preset to dial compression in on a vocal. I'm going to manually dial compression in.
Yep.
I'm not going to just use a plugin preset to do that. But let's just say, I don't know, Pro Q3 Fab Filter. Let's just say I want to give a little telephone effect, and they have a telephone effect on there. Like if you're a beginner, you don't know how to actually dial in a telephone effect and give that filtered out sound. Oh, bet there's a little telephone effect on there. Sometimes even like I'll do different EQ curves for a telephone effect, but sometimes I'll like the Fab Filter preset that's there. I've been using that one for years.
Yeah,
So there's a
and
lot of different plugin preset effects that can work. Just make sure that you're not using those plugin preset to cut corners.
no, so that literally what you said, I wrote down as well too. It's I wrote down here how engineers use presets, and you said it like you took the words out of my mouth. Yeah, it's I separate it in two. In my mind, it's two. It's like you could use plugin presets for creative tasks or like
Right,
creative
right,
effects. So let's say
right.
you're fucking on, let's say like you have a saturator, you know what I'm saying, like Fab Filter Saturn or fucking like Decapitator or some shit like that, and you want like a specific gritty crunchy tone, and you're trying to fuck up the vocal in a specific way, then okay, yeah, it's like fuck it, cycle through the presets. That's a creative effect. If you have like a specific reverb that you want to play with or a delay that you want to play with or shit
Right.
like that, cycle through the plugin presets.
Yeah, exactly.
If you have what's another one? I don't know, like modulation, chorus, all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
those are creative effects presets. Even with EQs is like if you're filtering out or if you want to get a certain filter, or like McDSP's Futzbox. That one's
Shout
another
out to
great one.
McDSP.
Yeah,
And the thing that's pretty cool about plugin presets is like, for example, if you use those in a creative way for effects, right? And you click it, boom. Now you can actually tweak that specific effect to tailor to your song specifically. You're not limited. You're not
Yeah.
limited. It's not necessarily just a set and forget. It can be if it works,
Yeah.
but you can specifically attenuate it how you need.
Yeah, and so that's using plugin presets. That's the only way that I would use them. I would use them as
Right.
creative effects. I don't really ever use them as critical adjustments.
Right.
So like how he was saying, if we're gonna use a compressor, you know what I'm saying, on some vocals, usually I wouldn't use a preset on that, like where it's like a lead up front vocal or tight up front vocal. That's very specific as to again the gain staging of how high the
initial
level
sources,
signal
yeah.
is going into that compressor. I
Right.
mean, maybe some plugins have manuals as to like maybe like how hot the preset should be hitting within that thing. I don't know. I mean, that could be a thing too. But if you already know how to feed it into a specific dB level, then you're already very knowledgeable as an engineer. So
Right.
you know how to utilize that a little bit more. But I'm speaking more for the beginners here. Yeah, I mean, just actually dial in specific shit like that. Or if you have a specific EQ, like let's say you want to EQ your overall vocal, I wouldn't really go with like, because they have like I know FL Studio has FL Studio has EQ presets where it says, vocal presence, vocal this, vocal that.
Yeah.
And a
Even-
lot of times
yeah.
those do too much. You know what I'm saying? So that's
Yeah.
why I wouldn't use plugin presets for specific critical listening effects, but I would use it more as a creative effect overall, because when you're using a plugin preset as a creative effect, you could fuck up the signal as long as you want, because you're going into that intention to give it that effect of
Exactly.
it not sounding like what it was before, fucked up. But
It's okay to break the rules sometimes if you do it in a creative way where it works.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it enhances your song.
And then I mean there are a few other presets that like I do use sometimes for like corrective shit. The only plugin that I use plugin presets on that's a little bit more corrective is Soothe. So I like to
Oh
go
yeah.
I like to
Soothe,
go on the
soothe.
presets. I go to Soothe
Yeah.
and then I go to vocals and then I'll play with those because Soothe, if you guys don't know what Soothe is, it's taming those harsh resonant frequencies.
Yeah, it's a dynamic resonance suppressor.
Exactly. And so I'll play with that and then I'll usually play with how much I'm doing and with the mix or whatever to get like a cleaner sounding vocal. So that's like the only time I'll use a preset on that. But as far as for my EQs and compression goes, literally you just have to play with that. And I'll give you guys a few tips as to how to train your ears to hear that a little bit better as we move forward. But be very cautious when you're purchasing presets again, because
Yep.
a lot of the times too, again, all the presets, the vocal presets that are being sold online are using the same plugins. So if you think about it in this way, you're paying somebody to fucking take a EQ and move it from here. How are they gonna say? They're gonna say like this. So moving it from here to here. And then they're selling that to you. They're like, "Oh, okay, this is Drake, this is Chris Brown." No, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, no.
Or they'll like put like let's say for like a reverb or something, they'll turn the reverb from 10% to 15%, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is Chris Brown, but this is Drake, you know. So you're basically paying somebody to do such like minimal tweaks,
Yeah.
and you're buying that because the way that presets work is like, okay, yeah, I guess you could buy a preset pack where it comes with a bunch of presets, right? Ooh, wow. Crazy. or let's say like if you're buying presets one by one by one by one by one, then potentially you could be wasting more money down the line too for somebody just doing something so stupid as just moving the EQ from here to here or having it like this to that. So that's why you want to be careful when you're purchasing presets online, because essentially you could be paying for the same shit. Same thing for the templates. The templates is the same thing too, bro. You could be buying and purchasing a template, and yeah, the templates may look different, but if you don't, the thing about purchasing templates or using templates is if you don't understand the workflow behind the template, which is why the creator of the template made it in that way, then you're not going to utilize it. Because I've seen it so many times where I'll get mixing sessions from artists and stuff like that, and they'll have like a literal like a recording template that they purchased online, and it has the comments open and it says, okay, do this, drag vocals down, do this, do that. And even with fucking clear instructions right there on the side, the artists, they don't even fucking do all that shit right. It's funny because then you'll see like it'll be a recording session and it has fucking a billion of just dead tracks that don't even need to be there, that have literally zero vocals on it at all. So it's like, did you even really utilize the template to its fullest potential, or did you even need that fucking template? Because if that template, if you didn't use any of those additional tracks, then you didn't need that as a part of your workflow. So it's important when you're developing yourself as an artist, engineer, or producer trying to engineer, to understand what you're doing for that artist that you're working with, or if you're working on yourself, and what you need to utilize that template. So yeah, buying templates too, that shit's fucking retarded too.
Check it out. It's motherfucking round 2 in this bitch. If you're buying a preset, or if you are selling presets that are, oh, Drake, yeet, this, mastering template, mastering this, you're fucking selling some bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Every single song's different. It's like, it's okay, but it's like, nah, like, y'all are really scamming people, bro. Like, it's not even the fact that, you know, y'all are trying to give a quicker solution. It's like a fucking scam. This shit,
They're
there's
trying
no
to
way,
monopolize.
there's no way to cut corners in this shit. You fucking can't. Like, you can definitely, presets are cool, vocal presets are cool if you tailor it to your own, you have your own. But nah, like, all those other bullshit artist presets, they're just a scam.
Well,
Don't
again,
fall for it.
Well, again, it goes into the laziness of people overall and the ease of use.
Right,
That's why
100%.
That's why I feel like as long as they're up, people are still going to use them because they're too lazy to really learn how to use their tools.
Hey, and to each his own, you know, everybody's gonna do what they're gonna do. Do what works for you. But hey, if you're watching this podcast and you're part and you support us, fuck presets.
Yeah, fuck the presets. But yeah, and then another thing too about presets is if you use presets, you're going to be stuck in a box,
You're
right?
limited.
You don't
limited.
you don't want your creativity to be capped to that specific preset. So a lot of the times with the people who are using the presets, guess what? It creates a super saturated sound within the fucking industry. Like a lot of people, let's say they'll get a can preset. Ooh, oh, what is it? Yeah, yeah. Hold on, let me see. Hold on, I'm gonna pull that shit up. I want to throw that shit in there. Oh, it's right here. Look, yeah. Like a lot of people, they want to get the can preset, right?
Send it
All
all
the
the
way
way
up
up, all
there.
the way up, it's dumb.
Fuck, that's just fucking hilarious. But yeah, people will buy fucking like presets like that and literally hop on the mic doing the same exact shit. Yeah.
And that's
Uh-huh.
also the thing,
Yeah.
about that's also the thing about
Uh-huh.
presets. I always see, like, I'll be on YouTube, and it's obviously because we're engineers and we look up engineering shit. I'll get every so often I'll see a fucking like video of best new Yeet template, right? And I just literally click on it for the amusement sometimes, and I watch the shit, and I'm just like, bro, what the fuck is this? Like, what is this? It's
Yeah.
like you can literally tell that some people are just trying to emulate how the artist is delivering the vocal, so that way it kind of sounds like it. But at the end of the day, it's like that's a whole different artist. That's not you. You know what I'm saying? For me, my personal opinion, you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Like, it's okay to take inspiration from artists,
Yep.
but it's like another thing to copy them one for one. It's
Rip
like,
'em, yep.
and then like you just look like a fucking clone at that
Clone,
point, and
yep.
it's like you lose your credibility. Like, it's not the best. It's not the best. Not the best.
Going back into it keeping you in a box, because a lot of times people will purchase the presets and they'll literally hop on the mic doing the same shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then guess what? There's a fucking, like, no disrespect to the current underground scene, but at least to me personally, the people like Summers, sometimes Autumn, or like all those genre of artists, they sound pretty much the same. And then not just them, like they're the big ones. They actually have like I guess a career, you could say. But then the people who are all wanting to buy those presets, you get what I'm saying? They all literally sound like those artists. So that's what I mean by you're keeping yourself in a creative constraint. And that's not necessarily how you break through as an artist. Again, it's better to sound new than good. And if you're using the same presets, you're not sounding like anything new at all. While the artist that you're purchasing the preset of is already focused on innovating a new sound and creating a new sound, you're stuck on their old shit. So you're just always going to be chasing behind the artist's tail, and you're never really developing yourself and your craft as a true artist. And that's what separates the pros from all the rest. You get what I'm saying? So, you don't ever want to have that constraint on you.
Yep.
And when you're using a preset, it's capped to that preset. But think of it like this: if you're not using a preset and you just leave it open, then you have a whole canvas that you could completely play with. Like, let's say you do want your vocals to be squashed as fuck for whatever the fuck, you know what I'm saying? And so then that's like a creative thing that you could do too. Or if you want it to sound more open and natural, or you want it to sound dynamic for that reason or whatever, that's like more intermediate to advanced levels of engineering when you're starting to do everything with intent. And to me, that's where the most interesting music gets kind of created, when you're actively changing the actual sound of what's being heard. It's weird. Yeah, there's a lot of
It's a debate. It's of course it's a debate, and like, hey, if people use them for a creativity process, whatever, that's totally fine. Like, fuck it. To each his own at the end of the day, but we're just teaching the motherfuckers who actually care.
Yeah, and then so as far as learning, so we already covered good ground on presets. I mean, it is what it is, and a lot of people, again, you guys may already know that, like, you're like, okay, well, yeah, I already know this. You know what I'm saying? You guys are just stating the obvious. Well, okay, you're reminded, but no, but well, you want to go for it? What were you?
That's what I was gonna say. I'm not gonna say who.
That's funny.
Right? But I've seen somebody, right? They took a song that was already mastered.
Oh, I forgot about that shit. Yeah.
They took a song who was already mastered,
Yeah.
threw it into an FL session, put a fucking limiter on it, whatever it was,
Yeah.
and started advertising, oh, here's a mastering template. Bro, what are
That
you doing?
no, that
That shit is stupid. And like if you fall for that, I'm sorry. That's just because of your lack of knowledge. But what a fucking scam.
no,
Don't
yeah.
fall for that shit.
Okay, yeah, so that's what I want to talk into too. Yeah, so aside from vocal presets, then then you have the mastering presets too, and that shit.
Oh
I
my
think that shit's
goodness.
more fucking stupid than the vocal presets because again, yeah, that
Mixing is an art, mastering is an art, and recording is an art. You know what I'm saying? It all has different stages and different steps, and you can't cut the corners.
yeah, that whole I've seen that ad was fucking retarded because the song, the person who was promoting that fucking mastering,
It was a
preset-
Yeet song that was already like
no,
it was already.
it was a Sofego song.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, it was a
It
Sofego
was a
song. That's what it
Sofego
was.
song, and fucking, you could literally see how on the audio file how he downloaded it from YouTube to MP3. So even that download
Yeah.
loses quality because you're downloading it from MP3. It's not the actual
Yeah, it
original
downsampled it.
wave file. Yeah, because you're gonna get that fucking audio compression in there or whatever the fuck. So that shit was stupid, and then he just took that and then like turned the signal down and then ran it through mastering again. Keep in mind that song was probably already mastered, so he double mastered it, trying to sell that as a mastering template, and that shit was the stupidest, dumbest shit that I could ever see. It's like if you're gonna create like a quote unquote mastering preset, at
man.
least have it like an original master, not a fucking master of a master. That shit was fucking dumb as fuck.
I think the quickest at least thing for a beginner in a sense that's a mastering preset would be like a all-in-one mastering plugin. Like I think there's one called Master Plan and then God Particle, of course, by Jason Joshua. Those are the quickest like two all-in-one
Yeah.
like mix bus plugins, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So that's what I would think would be like more of a beginner tool rather than a mastering preset, you know what I'm saying? Because it's
Yeah.
a more all of one plugin to achieve the specific loudness, width, and top end like EQ, whatever you
Yeah.
want. You know what I mean? But as far as master preset, nah, fuck that shit.
Yeah, so that's another interesting one too. But again, yeah, going back to, we may already know this. How can we use this to get better vocals or understand our tools better ourselves? And I just kind of want to share a little bit more of my journey of how I learned. So that way, for those that are watching, you could probably follow in my steps and you can learn a little bit quicker too. So I remember when I first even saw just an EQ in general, I was like, bro, what the fuck is this? This shit looks so weird. And I remember always being online looking up, like, how do I EQ a vocal? How do I get this sound? How do I get this? How do I get that, bro? And it took me so long to kind of like figure it out. But yeah, this tip that I want to share you is probably, hopefully it speeds up your workflow. So as far as EQ goes, right, one thing that I would recommend is, yes, you could use the sweeping method where you filter out a little bit of the lows or whatever, and then if you want to hear certain frequencies within your EQ that you want to dip out, yeah, go ahead and do a sweep. But the only downside to the sweeping method is if you have a super tight Q and you're sweeping all the frequencies,
A lot of shit's gonna sound resonant, yeah.
almost every frequency is going to sound bad. So one thing that I recommend is to really, I think this is like a Luca Predolesi method or whatever, is like instead of boosting the Q of the EQ all the way up and then sweeping, just keep the Q tight. And if you can, and if your EQ has a solo feature,
Oh, solo it until it starts ringing, huh?
yeah, it's
So you hear that ringing
swipe,
point. I
swipe
seen
it
him do that, yeah.
until you hear the ringing point, and then you're able to duck it down. Most stock EQs, I don't think they have that feature. I know the Pro Tools one does have that feature, but Logic and FL and Ableton, I can't really speak on. So if you guys don't have that feature, FabFilter has the solo feature, and that's the
FabFilter,
and that's the quickest way that you could actually hear when a resonant frequency is sticking out, and then
Yep.
you duck it. And for me personally, I like to, once you start mixing a lot of records, and if you, another thing too is like stay in the same room and really listen to music in one spot, so your ears become tuned to that specific spot. And then once I start listening to a lot of music, I'm able to hear the tone by just kind of like humming or whistling that tone. So Usually when I hear a lot of boxiness or whatever, I'll go and then I like my ears kind of like matching like that little frequency, and then once I find that frequency, then I just dip it down, and then I proceed and I go on from the rest. If I hear a little bit of sharpness or scratchiness, like or whatever, like I kind of like beatbox or whatever the fuck you want to call it, that sound to kind of match the sound that I'm hearing that's frustrating my ears, and then I dip it out. So that's as far as like subtractive EQ goes. And another quick way for you to learn how to use EQ too a little bit better is really referencing different tracks, you know what I'm saying, to your source material. So if you can, the quickest way to learn how to EQ a vocal is listen to other songs that you genuinely fuck with the sound of. Because again, yeah, depending on whatever music you listen to, you can listen to whatever music. If you do like that whole underground sound and you do want to kind of create a fucking sound like that where it is super filtered and fucked or whatever because you just like that sound, okay, that's the quickest way for you to understand how to use your EQ in that way, so that way you don't have to rely or purchase these presets. Because whatever artist you listen to, if you have that as a reference and you want your vocals to sound that way, that's again the quickest way to kind of match your vocals to that sound. Play the song and then play your song and then try to match it and listen to it. And the more that you do that, the quicker you'll be able to learn how to EQ. You could watch a lot of videos on, okay, these are the hot spots. This
How
is
to EQ vocals, man.
and there's nothing wrong with those videos, because they do help with the overall general
Idea,
yeah, because like, okay, this is the boxy frequencies, this is the boomy frequencies, this is the nasal frequencies, this is
Exactly.
the scratchy frequencies.
But
this is
every
that.
vocal is different. You know, what works for me is not gonna work for him. You
Yeah,
know?
and
That's the thing that
and
people don't understand.
yeah, and the way to kind of make your EQing a little bit easier is, again, pull up that reference track that you fuck with and kind of try to match it, and then you'll start to notice, okay, this vocal on my reference sounds a little bit brighter than mine. Mine doesn't sound as bright. Boost up wherever you think it needs to be. And it's like, okay, it sounds like bright, but it's not there. So maybe you need to boost up the presence like at 5K or some shit like that. Or maybe in your vocal, if you're recording in a small bedroom or something like that, you hear a lot of like boxiness, low end tone, and then the vocals that you're listening to, they don't have that low end tone at all. So then you have to filter that out and then basically attenuate it from there. And then through that process, that's how you're gonna be able to learn how to EQ your vocals at least a little bit better. That's for the EQ. And then for compression, that one's a little bit trickier to get into.
Compression is a lot trickier for sure.
Yeah, but the only thing that I would say is for compression, again, yeah, use the reference method. So reference a song. If you what a compressor is basically doing is it's evening out the signal of whatever source you're feeding into it.
Right.
So if we're speaking about vocals, to understand a compressor, you need to understand dynamic range, especially within a vocal performance. And if so you have to know what that is. So dynamic range is when you're talking really quiet and then you get really loud.
Exactly.
And
you
a
have
compressor,
you have a lot of different dynamic
valleys
range,
and peaks.
spikes, valleys
Yeah.
and peaks. Exactly.
And what a compressor is
Transients,
doing
all
is
that.
it's leveling that out, so that way when you're listening to your vocals
Sounds
within a
smoother.
mix, it's consistent and it's not jumping in and out of the mix. Now, whether you want it to jump in and out of the mix, that's a completely like creative decision for you to have. But
Right.
typically with a lot of pop and mainstream vocals, they're sitting in a specific pocket. But again, that varies from whatever genre you're in, whatever type of music you're working on, et cetera, because a lot of, like, let's say you're the 1% that's in fucking jazz or whatever, and you work on jazz and you're not even doing, you probably wouldn't even be watching this vocal, but you're doing live instruments. Jazz, they like those dynamics or whatever, so that's obviously different. But if you're working in rap or pop music, usually it's there. So that was just a little tangent, but so once you understand the dynamics of the compressor, the quickest way to learn how to use the compressor is really, honestly, at least for me, what I've learned is just slamming the fuck out of it. So I'll just turn the threshold up, or I'll fucking if it's like a 76 style compressor, you just turn the input and output down, and then I'll just play with the attack and release and see how it affects the sound of your vocals. When you open up that attack, you're gonna see, okay, it's letting a little bit more of that initial sound come through, versus when you completely close the attack, the vocals take a full step back.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? And then also play with the release, all while it's slamming, while the needle is fucking pinned to -10, -20 or whatever. You're gonna be able to hear that a little bit more, and then you can dial in your attack and your release how you kind of want it. The thing, and then let me explain release a little bit. With the release, if you make your release super fast, you bring in a lot of that low level detail. Which you kind of need to be careful too, because if you're recording in like in a noisier room, it could either bring in a lot of the noise floor, or what it could do is it could give it like a very aggressive, crunchy kind of sound. So you could do a fast release, and if you want like a rap vocal to have that aggressive sound, then a faster release may be something that you desire. But if you want more of like a smooth sounding vocal, usually with the release, you don't want it too slow, because if it's too slow for it to recover, then it's gonna like give like a weird pumping kind of sound. But if you want a smooth vocal compression, then what you have to do is kind of time the release to the speed of that the rap vocals are going in. So if somebody's rapping, you get what I'm saying? Like between each, you need the release to go. You need it to move fast, so obviously you're gonna have a faster release. But if you're having a smooth, slow singing part, then you want to kind of time the release to release as it's slowly pumping. So you kind of time the release to your track, and to me, that's what I found to get a smoother sounding vocal compression. You understand? That's a little bit more transparent.
And that's the thing, is every compressor is different. Every compressor is different. You know, there's FET compressors, opto compressors, very mute compressors. There's all these different types,
and they all have different tones.
They all have different tones. They all have different characteristics, different colors, all that shit. And it's like, you really got to understand what specific compressor you're using and what you have for the intent with it, you know? And it all starts with the vocalist and their performance. So as an engineer, when you start to understand your clientele and the people that you work with more, you have more of an idea on how specific they deliver their vocals, you know? Not every song is going to be different, of course. You know, you're not going to know if somebody's going to do an upbeat, crazy song, but you have more of a general idea, and that gives you, as an engineer, a almost like a gauge and an idea of where to start from, you know, a starting point, you know? Because let's just say you have a singer, you know? Sometimes you're not going to want to use that fast FET compressor. You're going to want to use something more smooth, like an opto, you know? So it all depends at the end of the day what you're using and the intent that you're using it with, but it's just know what you're going in it with, you know the tools that you're about to use. Don't just think that, I'm going to use this. I mean, sometimes it works, but like, you know, it just, when it comes to like mixing specifically, at least for me, this is what has helped me improve, right? Is every step that you take along the way, like have intent behind what you're doing, you know? So for example, like, first thing, EQ, obviously. So what am I doing with my first EQ? What's my main objective with this EQ? Okay, bet. This one's a first little cleanup. What I want to do is clean up all the little low-end frequencies that are just
sticking out
too much. It doesn't sound good, right? Once I do that little cleanup, all right, bet. I have this. Now I'm going to add some compression, you know? And each step that you take, you know, just is a step further in the right direction.
Yeah, so and then when it comes to compressors too, also be aware of understanding that compressors have different tones. So to quickly understand, there's two things that I want to say here. So different compressors have different tones. So understand that there's opto compressors, FET compressors, VCA compressors, whatever. Just look into that. That's maybe a subject for a different podcast, all about compression, but look into that. But then
I have to do that.
Another thing too is if you can, honestly, I would recommend to not use your stock compressors. The stock compressors, they could be good, but sometimes they're just a little bit confusing to understand. Specifically, I'm talking to FL, because the FL stock compressor, I love FL, but that's the only stock compressor that I feel is fucking confusing as fuck to understand what it does, because it has no meter at all showing how much gain reduction you're even fucking getting. And that's kind of like,
that's the only part where it's a little like kind of tricky. That and the fruity multiband too. I think it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Hey, FL, if y'all want to come out with an update with a new comp with a little gain reduction meter,
you kill the game after that.
Just a suggestion. Y'all been killing it with everything else, but just a suggestion.
Yeah.
But hey,
For
It's up
for
to
sure.
you.
But yeah, so that's like the only one. Like the if you're specific, but like Logic has a pretty decent compressor
Logic
because
stock compressor is pretty good.
yeah, because you can see the gain reduction. So you want to
Yeah.
get a compressor where you could see the gain reduction that you're getting.
Yeah, even on Ableton, I know on Ableton it's the same shit. Like they have a gain reduction meter. Like even the glue comp, all of them. I'm pretty sure they have gain reduction
Yeah,
meters. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
yeah, just so you know how much you're attenuating with your compression because
Yeah,
you want to be able to see that kind of stuff. And there's like, yeah, literally the FL Studio compressor is probably the only one that just literally doesn't show you. And you could turn your threshold all the way down, be compressing, but you really have to rely on your ears. And like, I know they
yeah.
say mix with your ears, but that one's just like a little confusing to really even see.
Especially as a beginner, because with
Yeah.
compression, that's one of the like hardest things to understand as
And
a
wrap your
beginner.
mind around,
Yeah,
yep.
exactly. Because it's not it is a visual, like you having a gain reduction meter is obviously like very important for sure, but it's more of a thing where like even with that meter, like you really have to train your ears to like know when it's too much, when it's too little, when you have to dial the attack and release different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's so much that goes into it. So it's like having that little tiny bit of a visual, like it helps a lot.
Yeah. And what was the other thing that you said you wanted to say?
Oh, also, everybody who's been tuning into these podcasts, just want to say shout out to all of y'all. Everybody
Yeah.
who's been in the comments saying, we love these videos. Thank you so much. You've been putting us on. We appreciate you. So just know we
Work hard on these.
Yeah, no, we work hard on these, and we see you guys, and keep up with the support. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. But and then so that's really the two tools that you guys need to understand is just the EQ and the compression. And then usually that's the signal chain that I would go for is just do subtractive EQ first and don't do such wide broad bands. Do more narrow bands because with the wide band you're just affecting all the surrounding frequencies. But again, once you become more advanced in engineering, you can be a little bit more crazy with it because you know
can
what
be
you're trying to go.
Yeah, exactly. You
for.
can be creative with wider
But-
bands or not, but
Yeah, but so then it's that first EQ and then it goes into your compression usually, and then a second EQ. The way I do a second EQ with subtractive because sometimes the compressor adds more tone, more artifact that I may not want, and then I'll do like a final EQ where I boost. You get what I'm saying? A specific EQ where I boost frequencies. That's all you really need to know for processing vocals. It's literally that simple. You don't need to overcomplicate it. It's literally that simple. Again, just use the methods that I mentioned before, and you could achieve a better vocal sound. Obviously, there's little things that you could get into like parallel compression or this, that,
or
multiband,
DS
blah blah
and
blah.
all
This
that
is
stuff,
that.
you
Yeah,
know
but
what I mean?
but don't necessarily worry about that too much. Just start off there, learning the basics. Because one thing that I want to say is, that's the quickest way to learn how to engineer and mix. To limit yourself to specific tools for a good amount of time. I was never the type of person to be like, oh, look, there's this plugin. Oh, there's this plugin. Oh, there's that plugin. Always searching for an exterior source of this is gonna make my shit sound good. No, I always knew that it was the power within. It was the power within. And now I could use any fucking EQ. And even if I had to use the fucking FL compressor, I wouldn't like to use it at all. But I'm pretty sure I could still use it to get like a decent sound, I guess. But it's more about just understanding the fundamentals of how to use it. So again, like limit yourself. Don't go crazy splurging because there's a lot of people too who they're out there and they think, oh, maybe it's because I'm not using the right plugins or I only have these plugins, this and that, or I only have stock plugins or whatever. No, a professional engineer will actually be able to still get a great mix even with stock plugins. And I still use a lot of stock plugins too to this day.
Hell
because
yeah, Avid stock plugins are fire.
Yeah, so don't ever get the thought that you need specific tools. Yeah, the thing about these tools is they could make your life better, but even when you have a surplus of tools and you have access to all these fucking plugins all at once, you're going to start looking at your plugin menus and you're going to start seeing a bunch of shit that you don't even fucking use. And it's just taking up space. And this kind of goes back into the last podcast that I was talking about. It was a productivity book, the fucking deep work book. It says understanding what tools you actually need, and it gave the analogy of a dude who had an apartment, right, and he had a bunch of shit just lying around everywhere, and it was like not a mess, but he just owned a lot of stuff. And what he did was he packed everything into boxes and just set it aside in the corner. And if he ever needed something, what he did was then he'll go into the box, pull it out, and then set it down. And then after like a span of a month or whatever, he started to realize what he actually needed and used versus what he didn't use. So everything that stayed in the box, he didn't even fucking use. So did he really need it? No. You get what I'm saying? So the same thing applies to your tools. If you're gonna have a billion gajillion fucking plugins, yeah, you're gonna have a bunch of just fucking shit laying on your fucking computer taking up your space when realistically speaking, you're not even using any of that shit. So if you can kind of create something of a similar process where you uninstall certain plugins and you're like, okay, well, I want to use this plugin, then you're gonna start to see, okay, these are my go-tos. You get what I'm saying? And that's another way to really speed up the process, because if you're splitting yourself between a bunch of different directions and you're trying to use this plugin this day and that plugin that day and this plugin this day and that plugin that day, and you're just fucking doing that, you're never going to create a solid foundation for your sound. You get what I'm saying? And that's something that just takes time to build, and you will get there much quicker if you stick to what you got and really master what you got, and then slowly start supplementing and adding from there.
Yeah.
That's how you'll get the results that you're looking to achieve way quicker. So use constraints to your benefit, because especially with creative shit, I know, like earlier I mentioned, it's cool to have an open slate and an open canvas and to go wherever you want. But the downside to that is that could even be a fucking drawback too, because when you have the fucking endless possibilities there sitting in front of you, you could be like, fuck, there's so much shit. Like, what could I do?
Yeah.
And then once you implement that constraint, like if I gave you a paper and I said, here, draw something on this, but it has to be the best fucking picture ever, you'd be like, fuck, I mean, what do I even draw? But if I said, here, I'm giving you this piece of paper, draw the best picture of a dog you can, you're going to get started fucking 10 times quicker, because you're like, okay, bet, I have that constraint. I got to draw a dog.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? But if you give somebody a blank and say, draw whatever the fuck you want, but draw something nice, it's going to take much longer for you to even get started. And that's one thing that within this, anything creative, you don't want to delay yourself to getting started. Give yourself that constraint again, because sometimes constraints are good within the creative field. So don't neglect that thing. But then obviously once you get good, you could break the constraint or do whatever the fuck you want to do.
Exactly. It's just the game.
So we hope that helped you guys kind of understand a little bit more about vocal presets and just processing overall, and how you could use these tips to make your vocal sound better, because again, you'll just gain more confidence. Again, keep everything that we mentioned in mind, using constraints, using reference tracks, using this, using that. And once you go in that direction, at least personally for me, that's what helped me develop my sound and style throughout the years. And again, it's always developing, but that's just what I've learned throughout the years to help me out. So hopefully that helps some of you guys out, and you guys took some knowledge from this.
Yep.
But also another thing too, shameless plug, if you guys want to learn quicker, don't forget to check out the Pro Tools recording course. Because look, the reason why I say this and the reason why I created a course is because I've taken countless courses on a bunch of shit, to be honest. Like, I've actually paid for a lot of courses, and realistically speaking, yeah, those are like direct sources of information for you to go from point A to point B. The downside about the internet is, if you're going to be going on the internet, you're going to be fucking looking here, and then somebody's going to say one thing, and then somebody's going to say something else that contradicts that, and then you're going to go this and you're going to go that. So then the time it takes for you to get to where you want to go is going to be 10 times longer. So that's why I'm not just saying it to push you guys a course to fucking make money or whatever. Obviously, it has an investment to enroll, but the reason why I made it that investment is because you learn the quickest way and the most direct way possible. I guess an example would be this guy right here, because
Yeah.
he didn't necessarily take the course, but I showed him what to do, and now look, we're sitting in his fucking studio.
Yeah, you got to put this into perspective too. It's like, when it comes to the Goopsters Room Pro Tools recording course,
Yeah.
it's an investment that you can make into yourself, where if you do this properly and right, you can end up making this a full-time career, and you could build something way greater than you ever thought that you would. And here we are, you know what I'm saying? We're sitting in my personal studio.
Exactly.
And, you know, we're making thousands of dollars on music. So it's like,
Yeah.
you know, you could do that too, but you have to invest in yourself, whether it's time, money, effort, Well, it's all of it actually.
Yeah.
But if you want
To
to
get there
there,
the quickest way possible.
tune in, tap
Yeah.
into my boys'
Enroll
course.
into the
I
ProTools recording
promise you
course.
won't regret it.
Yeah. And if you don't necessarily have the budget to enroll into the course,
DM my boy.
well, yeah, DM me.
DM him. DM him.
DM me or
DM him.
or just fucking check out the free YouTube channel. So that's why I'm
Yeah.
uploading a lot of tutorials on there too, because I still want to provide a lot of you guys with free valuable information. So if you guys could take from that, then go ahead and check that out first before you even want to check out the course, because it's the same shit. High quality stuff right there, my guys.
For real.
My guy, high quality information. So
100%.
yeah, I think I would just leave it off right there. We're gonna leave a video right here for you to watch so you could understand a little bit more. Don't forget to check out the other podcasts, whatever. But we'll catch you in the next one.
Appreciate you guys. Peace.
Yep, take care.